Fellow tennis nerds, I'm here with a guy you already know, Nikki Roenn, who we do the coaching app, we do coaching videos, we've done a lot of things together. He customizes rackets for the pros, strings for Novak and all that jazz. You might know that already. But you might not know that he's been at Bad Homburg, which is a WTA level tournament, a high level, Iga Świątek. Yeah. So, and you were there for how long?
So I was there for 10 days. So we start by setting up on Thursday, and then obviously first day of practice is Friday mainly, and then qualifying Saturday, split main draw Monday until Saturday final, because obviously of Wimbledon starting Saturday final.
Yeah. You need to think of that always. And what's the atmosphere when you in Bad Homburg? I've never been to that tournament. I've been to Stuttgart and the ATPs, but not the.
It's really nice. I mean, it's set up in a way of like the idea is it's called a boutique tennis experience. So everything is, it's a small tournament, but a big tournament in terms of obviously players and stuff. So you're very close to the court. Everything is very nice. They had big concerts on, nice food. Everything is like boutique style. It's in a beautiful park, so it's quite different from other tournaments I've been to, which is nice. It makes it cool. Also with the grass experience, Wimbledon time, the weather's nice, so it's good.
And but you go every year to this one at least, right?
Yes, yeah. It's been on for 3 years now, and I've been every year. So it's a fun tournament. I'm there with the Yonex string service, so it's Yonex that have the string service, and they invite me so far every year, which is good. And we're a nice little team because it's we're not super busy with stringing loads of rackets, so we're a small team, but it goes well, smooth, and it's all in all the time passes pretty fast.
Yeah, the level of I mean the team size difference in a Grand Slam and a ATP 250 or WTA 250, it looks so much more. I would say like not tranquil, but it looks like it's a nicer vibe. In a smaller tournament, like you have a bit more time, fewer rackets. Like how many rackets did you string during this?
I think in all, I think I did 84 rackets in the 10 days. I mean, obviously, Thursday setup didn't really string any, maybe 2, and then Friday, Saturday started to do more. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday was busy, and then obviously it starts to dial down. Obviously, each day the draw gets halved, so it goes down quick. But also, I think taking into account grass court tournament, players aren't stringing as much. But the cool thing to see was that this year we were up by 50 rackets from last year. So, which means obviously the girls are stringing a lot more rackets. Players I think they're, each year it seems like they're getting a little bit more focused or taking the stringing a little bit more seriously. So instead of just giving one, they give 2, 3, 4 rackets.
So why do you think players stringing more rackets?
I think with like the development of the sport in everything, whether it's their training, fitness, food, everything, they're starting to, all players across sort of all levels are taking like each little thing more and more sort of detailed, and it's just another part of the game that they have to sort of focus in more on. So I think the lower ranked players, the top ranked players have always been giving in plenty of rackets, but now you see the ones that are maybe 50, 60, 70 in the world, they're also starting to give 3, 4 rackets, and because they, I think, are starting to appreciate the difference that it can actually make to them in a game. Yeah,
I think people are more and more aware of everything. I mean, that could be food, physical preparation, gear, and the stringing and the different tensions and trying out, like depending on conditions. What do you see when you string like ATP versus WTA? Like, what are the differences in maybe types of rackets and tensions and strings?
Yeah, so I mean, the main difference is on the WTA tour, you see a lot bigger head sizes. So the average is 100. There's a lot more 100 square inch racket heads, and they're nearly all 16, 19. So you don't get that many small heads, tight string patterns as you do on the guys. I guess because you obviously get more power, a little bit more spin with that kind of setup. So you also you don't get the same deviation in tensions as you do on guys. I think also because of that, so players on the guys tour might be using a small head, dense string pattern, but then using a very low tension. I would say on the women's side, the tension and the profile of the frames are a lot similar. You don't get quite a big disparity of sort of types of rackets and setups. I mean, you obviously always get your anomalies, but in general.
Yeah, there's not many 95 square inch rackets on the WTA. I don't even know one I can think of. I mean, there's a few that maybe plays the H Tour or something like Ayla Tomljanovic maybe.
Yeah, there's a couple of, trying to think, maybe the pro stuff.
Yeah, the 97 at least.
Around, the 97. You have the
maybe some 95s.
Some 95s. The pro stuff, like the old one that Kavitsa is using.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. Actually, no, they're bigger heads. I think actually they're not. It's not a 95. It's the
No, I think it's a 97 kind of.
Yeah. So
that's maybe the lowest you go.
Yeah.
Almost.
So there's not. You don't get that. Yeah. Dense string pan, which makes the stringing job a little bit easier. Weaving a little bit faster, a little bit less stressful on the fingers. So it's a nice.
Yeah, and everybody who strings, then they know that. Like, and if you want to learn how to string, Nikki has a course, so you can check that out. I will put the link in the description. But I string for my own rackets, and like if you have a 100 square inch 16-19, you're like, oh, nice.
Yeah.
You know, and then a 95 18-20, it's gonna be a little bit more time consuming and a little bit more annoying. Overall,
exactly. Yeah. So no, it definitely does make a difference. And then weirdly, this year the rackets that I strung the most was head speeds.
Oh yeah.
Yep, don't know why. Just any player that had the head speed, I seem to get. So it was like Andrescu. She plays 18-20 actually head speed.
Yeah, the pro.
Samsonova. I have to think of some more names, but I think there was at least 6 players I was stringing that was all head speeds.
Oh
so,
wow. Yeah. But it's a popular model. Like I think it's what's this? Oh, I have 3 in my.
You have a tree in your head.
Maybe this will look
it's
interesting.
on your shirt as well.
While I clean myself from tree, it makes sense that like okay, they want more power. Usually you see that lower swing weights.
Yep.
When it comes to strings, like do you see more natural gut and hybrids, or is it more or less like full polyester a lot?
Full polys, to be honest. We saw, I saw at least more thinner gauges.
Okay.
So a fair bit of Timo as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Luxalon Timo.
That's a rare one.
Yeah, rare, nice string, 1-2-2. But there was also players playing like 1.2 links Tor, and even I think Polytor Pro 120. So there's players. The girls are using the 120 because obviously you do get more feedback. Strings a little bit more lively, and if they're not breaking, then it's worth it.
Yeah, of course. And they restring like the guys every day, I guess, for every practice.
Exactly. And then like always, some players are a little bit more picky when the rackets are strung. Other players don't mind as long as it's the same every day, or So, but all in all, this year we had no real issues. We were a good team, so it was myself. Kai Plitt, who's probably, in my opinion, one of the best stringers in the world, and he's been around for years stringing all Grand Slams, and then Martin Mann as well, who's also now stringing for Grand Slams and big tournaments. So like the 3 of us, I was probably the least experienced in terms of like tournament stringing, because these guys are like a seasoned tournament stringers.
Yeah, they travel quite a lot.
And whereas I'm not stringing many tournaments a year. So so it was a strong team. It was a nice team. Meant that there was never really a point where there was any sort of stress in terms of like the amount of rackets, because we could all string more than enough rackets. I think the most I strung in one day was 27.
That's a lot though, 27 rackets.
Yeah, 25 or 27, I can't remember. It would have been on the Monday.
Yeah.
It was a busy day, but like between, I think we got there at 8:30 and left at maybe 9.
Yeah.
And so it's, when you work it out, it's not that bad. And also, like I said, the rackets were easy. So like, I would say my average speed was sort of 3.5 to 4 rackets an hour.
That's good, yeah.
Because of like the slightly easier setup, everything going a little bit faster. And one of the nice things as well with this tournament is that the stringing service is in the like public area, so it's in the village. Where people are getting food, where there's a speed gun, where there's the champagne bar, so people are coming by. We were also stringing for
rec players.
Recreational players. And so it meant there was something happening, we weren't in like some little closet in the back of the tennis club somewhere, which was
like
nice.
a tent, a little bit remote,
Exactly. So we were out, people were passing by, things were happening, people were coming up, talking to us, asking us questions. We had, and it was nice, the players seemed to enjoy it as well. So it was on their way they could either walk to the hotel, which was about a 2-minute walk, if they didn't want to take a car, so it was convenient for them as well.
Yeah.
And it just makes it a little bit more exciting, because sometimes you see the string rooms and they're hidden away, barely any windows. They're lucky if they have air conditioning. So the conditions were nice. They were good.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, because even in like Mallorca where I went, the stringing service was like, at least by the window they could actually see one of the courts from there. And it's like nice and bright. It's a nice room, you have refreshments and stuff. But sometimes you see in the stringers being put like in some, basement area. Maybe I heard that from the Australian Open, like where you don't see much of the action or even daylight.
No, exactly.
Sometimes,
and I think for me, one of the things that I'm most sort of passionate about in terms of like stringing is trying to improve the conditions for stringers.
Yeah.
Improve their pay, improve the conditions, improve the respect they get, improve the thanks they get. Because, it's like a typical thing after a player wins a tournament, they thank everybody, but nobody ever thanks the stringers. Nobody says thanks to the stringers, and we're, like, stringers are one of the, like, the foundations of the tournament. Like, if I don't know, we don't turn up in the morning, there's no matches. You can play matches without ball boys, you can play matches without line judges, but if the stringers don't turn up, you've got no rackets, you're not, like, nobody's playing.
No.
So they don't quite get the, the respect or the sort of the recognition that they deserve, which I think for a lot of the guys that string, they love what they do and they're passionate about it, but just having a little bit more sort of gratefulness from the players, like, it means a lot. And also, even just when players come to the stringing booth or the stringing tent, pick up their racket, say thanks, like, I know the stringers really appreciate it.
Yeah.
It just like, if they're hidden away for hours and hours, it's nice that that someone is starting to show a little bit of appreciation.
Yeah. No, I think that's a theme that resonates throughout. I've talked to a lot of stringers on the podcast before. Me and Nikki have talked before, but also Paul Skip and a bunch of other guys, also Martin Mann, as you mentioned. And I think they all feel a little bit sometimes forgotten. It's like some players give them credit and stop, and it can happen at the Laver Cup or it can happen at a slam. But sometimes it's a little bit, just string my racket and there's not much in terms of thanks. It's just like, here you go. And it can be a little bit dead because the stringing service is important. Like you said, there's no tournament. And also a bad string job and a great string job, there are two different rackets.
Yeah, exactly. Like, players, you don't want to piss off the stringers before you're playing a tournament. Do you know what I mean? I mean, not that the stringers are going to do a bad job, but like, it's the effort that, like, everything's done by hand. So regardless, like, if you're,
you wouldn't piss off your car mechanic.
No,
like,
exactly.
Hey, and so he does something. Not perfect. Let's say he's a little bit more lazy with you.
Yeah, and I just think that the players, or like for a long time now, like I said, it's getting better. But for a long time, players, were just kind of, here's my racket, I won it for like 10 minutes ago. And then it's like, well, there's a lot of work. Like
it's a process.
It's a process. Like, I think coaches and players could get better at just their communication with stringers. Like, for example, I had a player that I knew that she wanted a racket strung on the day, which is not a problem if we know about it. But instead of it just turning up last minute, here's 2 rackets, the coach said to me, hey, look, I have 2 rackets for you, but I'm going to give them to you later, or I'm going to give them to you now, but I'll let you know when you can string them, ideally as close to whatever time they need them as you can. Then that's not a problem. We'll always, like, the string service always do as best we can to, like, accommodate the players, the coaches, whatever the request is, as long as it's like a little bit sort of respectful. Whereas a lot of in the past I've experienced guys, players, coaches just kind of like demanding stuff, and then that's not cool.
No. Would you want to string more tournaments in the future?
I think a few, but I guess maybe fortunate that I would only want to do it if I like the team, if like it's a tournament that I want to string at.
Yeah.
So I don't, for example, personally, it's not a goal of mine to string at a Grand Slam.
That's heavy.
It's heavy. That's not for me. My fingers are not made for that. Like, even this tournament, I could feel after when I got to Wednesday, my fingers were sore. Like, I'm used to stringing a couple rackets a day, a week even, let alone like that kind of quantity consistently.
Yeah, every day.
And it's just not. It's not for me. No. So I really enjoyed that kind of week. I'm also, to be honest, I like to work on the front desk because it's like, for me, I feel like it's the position where I know maybe a lot of the coaches or players and stuff that I can also try and help with the stuff that I was talking about in bridging the gap between the stringers and the players a little bit, like, so even in Bad Homburg, there's a lot of the guys that I used to play with, they're now coaching various players, and so you can speak to them a little bit and be like, let's say if they do something that, because obviously some guys, they don't realize that they, dropping rackets too late, or, because they maybe not thought about it, which is fine. And then, if I don't mind to be in a position where I'm like, hey, do you mind just tomorrow or next time, just bring us let us know, or whatever it might be. And then 9 times out of 10, they're like, oh yeah, sorry, we'll do that, no problem. And then that for me is a way that I can like impact the sort of the stringing service for people a lot more than just stringing rackets at a tournament. So like front desk service is something I enjoy. I haven't, it's something that
it would suit you well because you also have from player experience, from coaching experience, and from stringing. So you have the kind of three different perspectives, which I think is relatively rare in the stringing scene.
I think so. And I think being able to sort of help, everyone, because obviously the stringing service is there to help the players, but I would like to help the stringing service and the tournament, and so like it all kind of goes a little bit together.
Yeah.
So I think it would be, so that would be something I would like to do more of.
But it sounds like a fun thing if it's not too big. Like I'm the same. Like that sounds like in my head also as a kind of a fun atmosphere. But when you go to a Grand Slam and you see the Wimbledon stringing room, I don't get like, ooh, that would be nice, because it looks a little bit more sweatshoppy. No offense to anyone, but it's like that's just how it feels, and it might
like
not
long
be.
Corridor, white lights,
yeah.
There's
and loads of rackets like Grand Slam. Like there should be loads of rackets.
Okay, but again, I think that stringing services, one of the things that I personally don't, it is the way it is, but I don't agree with that stringing services have to pay to be part of the tournament. It's just something that I don't think should happen.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so stringing services have to pay to be part of the tournament, which means that they can't.
So the brand has to kind of pay.
Brand has to pay, and therefore they can't pay the stringers, or they want to pay the stringers less, or they want to have a stringer less. So like each tournament, nearly every tournament I hear of, they're always a stringer too little. They're always a stringer too less.
That seems to be the thing, yeah.
And it's because they either, and the options are either charge the players more, but then the players get annoyed. Fair enough, I guess, if they're stringing,
How much is a racket for a player, by the way?
So in Bad Homburg, we were charging €22.50, and €20 were for the string service, and then $2.50 was for a charity from the area, together with Yonex that they've been helping with for a long time. It was actually like a local player. He set up a cancer foundation, and so €2.50 went to, and then all the money from the recreational players that we strung went directly to the charity as well. So we raised nearly €2,000 in the week. So that was
well, that's nice. So you combine charity and like an event like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was nice, and also an extra $2.50 on a racket for
everyone pretty much can afford that, especially
at that level. At that level. I think the restring is between 20 and 30 euros roughly.
Yeah, I've heard about 25, 35 sometimes, depending on.
And it's and stringers are getting paid like a day rate. They're never getting, only in the old school days they were getting paid per racket, but that doesn't work out well because then stringers are trying to string way too many rackets.
They overdo it.
If you're getting paid per racket, then you're like just asking for, some guys would be asking for more and more rackets, which isn't good for then the quality will start to dip. So 9 times out of 10 you get paid a day rate, and it just seems that there's always a stringer too less, and that in the end it'll hurt the quality of the string service. It'll also tire out the stringers too much, and so therefore I don't think that a string service should have to pay to be part of the tournament, because they're not sponsored, they're a foundational part of the tournament. For example,
without them, there's no tournament. So every tournament has a stringing service. That's why I thought it was kind of an integral part of when you're setting up the tournament. But obviously since you always have different brands running it, and it's not just from different areas. It's always it's Yonex, Wilson, blah blah blah.
I think I'm not sure how accurate that it is, but I think they're trying to get the ball sponsor includes the stringing service.
Okay.
Because obviously I understand you paid to be the ball sponsor, but that means that you also get the stringing service.
All right.
And that hopefully can alleviate some of the budget issues for the stringing service if they go together. And then, what was I going to say? Stringing service, paying.
If their sponsor is from both the ball and...
for example, the physios, doctors of the tournament, they're supplied by the tournament.
That makes sense.
It's like if you have, if you have a physio clinic somewhere, you're not paying a tournament to be part of the tournament physio service.
No.
Like they are getting the physio service in.
Yeah.
And you could argue they do an amazing job. The players need them. It's not that they're not important, but they're at least as important as the stringers, and the stringers have to technically pay to be there.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that needs to change. I would like to see change. And again, that comes with the awareness. There might even, if you think about it, the idea that the stringers should even have, the players even should have to pay is a questionable thing, really. When you think of the size of a tournament, the prize money that goes into it, even up to a certain level, why do the players actually have to pay? They don't pay for water, they don't pay for towels,
no car service, nothing, right?
Car service.
Not hotels either.
No hotels. So why are all these things included and not the stringing service?
Is it because you can? Yeah, it's true. Because you can eat as much as you want, pretty much. But well, you have some, budget.
Yeah, but you have food covered.
And you could have an include, like you could say, hey, you have, X rackets a day. At least some limitations, so people don't go crazy.
Obviously, a bit like the food, I guess. So so on the food, a lot of times at tournaments you get whatever, 50 euros per day, or whatever it might be.
You go to the canteen and some.
And then you get your X quota for every day you're in the tournament. You get 4 free restrings, or 2 free restrings, or whatever it might be.
Makes sense, I think. Yeah.
And that way, first of all, the tournament will know how many rackets players are going to string, roughly, a lot more accurately, because then players are probably going to use their free restrings, more or less. And you know the workload, you can prepare for it, you can know how many strings you need.
Yeah.
Everything is going to be a lot better. And and then the players, I mean, like I said, they shouldn't really have to pay.
Yeah.
And at the end,
they would be happy with that for sure.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
And it's also I feel like sometimes in tennis, or like the way the tours are structured now, it's like feels like there's some that take a lot of big chunk of the money. Players on lower levels get very, very little. The prize money are still similar to what it was like 10, 15 years ago, although they increased a bit on the futures, but a bit marginally. So I think there's like a completely disproportion of the money flow, right?
Exactly.
Where it needs to kind of balance out a bit more to make tennis a more viable sport. I know the big companies, sponsors, whatever, or the tournaments, they want more and more money. They they get the sponsors in, blah blah blah. But it needs also some balance, because otherwise the whole funnel doesn't really work, like the whole system of tennis.
No, exactly, and that's what I mean. So for example, like if you look at a stringing service, say you're doing 300 rackets in a week, which was roughly what we did. I can't remember the 324, something like that. I think 318 was the total we did at 22 euros 50, or let's say just say 20 euros on 300. That's
7,000. 155.
Yeah, so around 7,000. And then I don't know I have no idea how much Yonex had to pay like for that service, but I know roughly it's around anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 a week at a tournament at that level. From like probably a 250 would be 1,000 euros, let's say, roughly.
And so that's kind of the rent of the tent.
Basically, yeah. I think actually it could even be more. Yeah, it could even be a bit more, because there's anyway, whatever there's a fee of let's say 1,500. So then suddenly there's not. I mean, it's not a massive outgoing for a tournament with a big prize money fund, but it's also not a lot of profit. To then you have to the service has to make money, and then you have to pay your stringers. Yeah. And you're left with 5,000 euros barely. Yeah. To pay at least 3 stringers and a front desk manager, so four people, and you're like, it's
the finance has become wonky, right?
Yeah,
so then that's why you cut out the stringer. Right?
Exactly, and so therefore you get rid of a stringer. So then we have just 2 stringers and a front desk manager or a helper or whatever. And then if you're busy and you then need to stencil, you need to cut strings out, and then it becomes chaos. And then you make mistakes.
And the service is then less good, obviously, for the players.
And then you're working longer hours, and then everything becomes worse. And it's for, let's say, for a total of 7,000 to 8,000 euros for the whole tournament. It's not such a big impact on the tournament. Like at a tournament, if I can't see a reason why that can't be included in the fee that they pay.
Yeah, it's below 10k, right? So it's like that then seems very strange, because if you look at it from like what a sponsor pays to be a part, like let's say if you're a title sponsor, you have to pay, it could be up to like 1 million or more euro, so it's like that's a lot of money, right?
That's a lot of money. And so to say, okay, for a 250 to a 500 you have to pay 10,000. It's not I don't think it's such a big impact, and I think it can benefit the players, can benefit the tournament, can definitely benefit the stringers. Means you can always have one extra stringer. Things will always be better organized. You know what you're dealing with, and so all in all, I think the service is going to get better.
Yeah. I agree.
So that's one of the things that I would like to. I don't know exactly how, but I would like to see changed.
Some reform. I think tennis needs these discussions, because there's a lot of things like in tennis. I mean, the thing that I get always on the podcast is like people who maybe play pro, the system of like you're trying to make it on the Futures Tour, and you're almost like homeless, right? Some people, because like unless you have wealthy parents, that can support you, or some sponsor, meaning like usually private fund, like no company are into paying that soon, you know. So usually, like
exactly.
you have to be very lucky.
Yeah, I think with a lot of things, it's one of those that like, oh well, it's kind of always been that way, and it works for the guys at the top, so unlucky for the rest, kind of thing, you know. Which so it would be nice to see a little bit of change. Just because it's always been a certain way doesn't mean that it can't change a little bit. So that would be nice. And then just going back to sort of the way also, I think then the relationship between the stringers and the players can get better, because sometimes stringers get annoyed at coaches or players, or sometimes, in my opinion personally, I think they have a little bit too much respect for players or coaches, and they a lot of the time are always scared of but what if, and they really worry about having to make sure every racket is at least at the elite level of stringers that I've worked with. They all really worry about like, what if we string it on a different machine? No, it has to be, like every tiny minute detail is taken care of, and yet like we have to work too many hours, and the conditions can't be that good, and I don't think that's fair. And so I think at some point there needs to be a better balance between the two things, where like as well, I mean, for me, because I've worked with or strung for like very good players, and a lot of them are a lot more relaxed than people realize, as long as the job is good. But sometimes people put too much emphasis, too much stress, and that I think is not an efficient way of operating, so it's like always having to wait, what if something happens, what if this happens, what if we have to use this machine, what if, and like it doesn't, like
things work out usually.
Things always work out, so 9 times out of 10 players are accommodating, and as long as the service is good, they're fine with it, so I would like to see stringers have a bit more confidence to like just to behave, let's say, a little bit sort of with a little bit more courage or a little bit more self-respect in terms of what they need to do or how they need to work and stuff, and not be so worried about what a player might think, what they might do, what if, so just to be, they can give a better, cleaner service.
No, but I think you make a really good point, and I think that's generally what I felt with all the stringers. It's like everybody is so keen on putting in a good job, making the tournament a success, making players happy, that they feel a lot of stress about it. And if the conditions are not good, it's not a really healthy way to approach it. Like, it's not a really healthy situation to be in, because exactly. The players some players are super nice. I mean, you string for Novak regularly when he's here and stuff, and he seems quite relaxed about it, despite how fantastic he is on the tennis court and serious with everything around it. But then obviously not all players are super nice and relaxed. Some players are used to taking their stress out on the stringing team, right?
Exactly. And so, for example, as Novak as an example, he's, he knows what he wants. He asked for it politely, grateful. And again, the times that I've not been able to do something, I'm like, look, I'm sorry, I can make it this time, or couldn't quite do it. All right, no problem. It's not the end of the world at the end of the day, because
some perspective,
Yeah, exactly, and I think that it's important that just the conditions get better, because having to arrive, obviously the stringers are basically the first people to arrive and the last people to leave. Most tournaments we get there before the tournament director has arrived, before a lot of the any setup has arrived, and we have to always wait until players have left. And so the days are long, but at the same time, we also don't really get any free time, because what if on-court racket comes? What if this comes? So
you need to be on standby.
Yeah, standby constantly, which is again something that I think could change, but it would take a lot of courage from stringers and a setup that would be like, hey, look, you're working kind of like a shift turn, because now the level of stringing generally has improved so much. So the level of stringing at all these high-level tournaments is so good, So in general, the level of string is much higher than it was 10 years ago. It's
like
really
with
very,
everything.
very good.
I mean, tennis increased, level of tennis, level of string, level of equipment generally also produced, So
and so now there is also a generalized sort of way of stringing, and the use of, we use the ERT, the DT machine. So
even the players know that one.
Exactly, the players use it as well, and we use that to measure the dynamic tension of the racket. So for example, say we need to split rackets for whatever reason, because we're busy, or the player's on court or starting very soon. So we do 2 rackets the same on different machines for the same player. And then after we use the DT machine, and as long as the DT is within 1 point, then it's not a problem, because then we know that the result is the same. And I think with that, and using that a little bit more, we'd be able to put stringers into more of like a shift setup, So okay, you're taking the morning shift from 8 to whatever, 2, and then you can come back later, or whatever it might be. And then even if you know, maybe I'm there in the morning and you string my players in the afternoon, but I know that the end result's going to be the same.
Yeah.
Because it only will only take one racket, you know, to do 2 rackets the same and then figure out if there's a difference generally in your stringing. Because if you're a good stringer, you're going to string the same all the time.
Yeah.
If I'm a good stringer, we're going to string the same all the time. So therefore, if you are doing it well, then it's not going to be a problem.
It's a good point. It's a very good point. Yeah, there's not lots more love for the stringers and some reform in the stringing world, I think.
Yes, I think so. Yeah, so it would be nice to start to see some changes, to see, you know, a little bit more like just, you know, yeah, some different, like some changes, because, you know, things don't have to always be the same just because that's how they were. So it's one of the things that I'm sort of more passionate about than like tournament stringing, just tournament stringing.
It's
so
good.
that's why
we need people who are taking the more like political fight in a way, or like saying, hey, we could improve, right? Like
yeah, exactly, for everyone, you know, like it's not just for one side either. It's going to be better for the tournament, stringers, players, everyone.
Yeah.
But it just takes a little bit of a push or something to happen that, I mean, one of the things I would like to kind of see happen, but I don't think ever will, and hopefully shouldn't need to happen, but like just like a stringer strike.
Yeah. At
some point, you know, like stringers say, some tournament.
Could happen.
Okay,
happen,
you know, and then the people, like, I hope it wouldn't need to get to that point, but it, like with many things, people are very stubborn, they don't want to change, and so it might be one of the only eventual solutions to like seeing like the impact that stringers have, because then suddenly there's going to be
a lot of pro stringers around in the hotel rooms.
Yeah, exactly, you know, things are going to be, you know, it's going to be a chaos, and hopefully it wouldn't need to ever get to that. That would be ideal, but I can see that, you know, I just think that stringers, that for at least the old school generation, are, you know, a little bit more workhorsey, so they are happy to lenient, be there for hours and hours and do what needs to be done, which is great, because that's why they're great stringers. But at the same time, things can get better, you know, things need to improve, whether it's working conditions, everything, just not only in stringing but in life in general. Things hopefully should progress, getting better, and I think stringing is the same, so it will be something that will be nice to see.
Good points from Nikki here, and he talks among, I think, for a lot of stringers, so that's nice. And if you agree, or if you're a stringer, let us know in the comments.
Yeah.
And now I have to go and play some tennis, which is fun.
Enjoy, I won't be watching.
No, it's not worth watching. But we'll do more of these conversations if you like them, and talk about other things, rackets, painting and stuff. Yep. And if you want your rackets painted, unstrungcustoms.com, I guess, is the place to go.
Yep. As always, I'm looking forward to the comment section.
Yes, the comments are the most fun. Take care, guys. Don't forget to play some tennis.